First contact gone wrong. The Krathan Empire had ruled over 17 star systems for 3,000 years. They had conquered species with technology centuries ahead of most civilizations. They had weapons that could crack moons and shields that could withstand supernovas. But on this particular day, in the outer reaches of their territory, something appeared on their sensors that made even their most experienced commanders pause in disbelief. Commander Vex stood rigid at his command station aboard the Imperial Watchtower, his forearms moving across multiple control panels simultaneously. The massive space station monitored all traffic through the Helix sector, the gateway between Krathan space and the unexplored regions beyond. For 12 years, nothing had surprised him. Today was different. The sensor readings showed a vessel approaching from the void between stars. It measured 800 meters in length, constructed from materials that seemed to absorb rather than reflect their scanning beams. The ship moved without any visible propulsion trail, gliding through space like a shadow given form. Most disturbing of all, the vessel's energy signature fluctuated in patterns that violated 3 fundamental laws of Krathan physics. Vex turned to his science officer, a thin creature with elongated features and pale blue skin. Lieutenant Cora had served the Empire for 50 years and had catalogued thousands of alien vessels. She stared at her screens with an expression that Vex had never seen on her face before. It was something between fascination and fear. "The readings make no sense, Commander. The ship appears to be generating power from quantum vacuum fluctuations. That technology is purely theoretical. Even our best scientists say it would take another 1,000 years to develop." Cora's voice carried a tremor that made Vex's scales tighten against his body. The commander activated the station's long-range visual sensors, bringing up an image of the approaching vessel on the main display. The ship looked wrong somehow. Where Krathan vessels were sleek and curved, designed to slice through space with mathematical precision, this craft appeared almost primitive. Its hull was angular and blocky, covered in what looked like patches of different materials welded together. Weapon ports dotted its surface in seemingly random patterns. It looked like something assembled in a scrapyard rather than a proper shipyard. Yet despite its ugly appearance, the vessel moved with purpose and confidence. It adjusted its course slightly, aiming directly for the Imperial Watchtower. Vex felt his primary heart rate increase while his secondary heart began pumping combat hormones through his system. He opened a channel to Imperial Command on the homeworld. Priority message for the High Council. Unknown vessel approaching Watchtower Station 7. Technology readings suggest impossibly advanced systems, requesting immediate military support. The response came back faster than expected. Admiral Theron himself appeared on the communication screen, his scarred face showing concern. "Commander Vex, are you certain about these readings?" The Admiral's voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too many wars to be easily impressed. Vex transmitted the sensor data directly to Imperial Command. The pause that followed told him everything he needed to know. Even the Admiral was shocked by what he saw. Meanwhile, aboard the approaching vessel, Captain Maria Rodriguez sat in her command chair reviewing the mission parameters one more time. The USS Defiance represented humanity's first attempt at deep space exploration beyond their small corner of the galaxy. After 50 years of studying alien artifacts found on Mars, human scientists had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. The ship was a patchwork of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology, held together by determination and what the engineers called aggressive maintenance. Maria turned to her first officer, Commander James Chen, who was monitoring their approach to the alien station. The structure ahead of them was massive, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface bristled with what appeared to be weapons and sensor arrays. This was exactly the kind of first contact situation they had trained for. "Captain, we're being scanned by multiple sensor types. Some of them are hitting us with energy frequencies we've never seen before." Chen's fingers danced across his console, trying to interpret the data. Maria nodded calmly. She had expected this. Any spacefaring civilization would be curious about newcomers. She looked around her bridge at the 30 men and women who had volunteered for this mission. They came from different nations on Earth, united by a shared dream of reaching the stars. Their ship might look ugly compared to whatever was out there, but it represented the best of human innovation. Every system had been tested and retested. Every contingency had been planned for. Well, almost every contingency. Lieutenant Sarah Thompson at the communications station raised her hand, Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships converging on our position. Based on their speed and trajectory, they'll be here in approximately 2 hours. Maria felt the first flutter of concern. Multiple ships suggested either a welcoming committee or a defensive response. Given that they hadn't established communication yet, she suspected it might be the latter. She stood up and walked to the front of the bridge, staring out through the reinforced transparent aluminum windows at the station, growing larger in their view. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. The question was whether their new neighbors would be friends or foes. Back on the Imperial Watchtower, Commander Vex watched as more data came in about the strange vessel. The computer had finally found a match for some of the biological readings from the ship. The results made him take a step back from his console. The creatures aboard that vessel matched the profile of a species the Empire had catalogued over a century ago. A primitive race from a small blue planet in a system the Empire had marked as insignificant. Humans. The word came out as barely a whisper. Cora looked at him with confusion. Humans were barely past their atomic age when the Empire's scouts had last checked on them. They had been fighting among themselves with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. The Empire had classified them as a Level 2 civilization, centuries away from achieving interstellar travel. Yet here was a human vessel, if the readings were correct, demonstrating technology that surpassed even the Empire's most advanced prototypes. Either the humans had made an impossible leap in development, or they had help from someone. Neither possibility was comforting. The USS Defiance slowed its approach, coming to a full stop exactly 1,000 kilometers from the Imperial Watchtower. Maria had chosen this distance carefully, far enough to seem non-threatening, close enough to show they weren't afraid. She turned to her communications officer with a simple order that would change history. Open all channels and transmit the greeting package. Thompson nodded and initiated the first contact protocol. The message contained mathematical concepts, music from Earth, images of humanity, and a simple greeting in 300 languages. It was humanity's way of saying hello to the universe. On the Imperial Watchtower, alarms suddenly blazed across every console. The human vessel had just activated something that sent shockwaves through subspace. The energy readings spiked beyond anything their instruments could properly measure. To the Krathan sensors, it looked like the humans had just armed a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. Commander Vex made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He sent out an emergency distress signal to all Krathan forces within range. The message was simple and terrifying. Possible hostile first contact. Human vessel demonstrating unknown superweapon technology. All available ships respond immediately. The misunderstanding had begun. What the Krathans interpreted as a weapon activation was actually humanity's quantum communication array, designed to transmit messages instantly across vast distances. The technology was based on quantum entanglement principles that human scientists had developed independently, unaware that the rest of the galaxy considered such technology impossible. Maria watched her sensors as dozens of ships began dropping out of hyperspace around them. Massive dreadnoughts, sleek cruisers, and swarms of fighter craft formed a sphere around the USS Defiance. The human crew remained calm, but tension filled the bridge like a physical presence. They had come in peace, but it seemed the universe had other plans. When predators meet their match admiral. Theron stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath, studying the impossible readings from the human vessel. In his 200 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The ship before him defied everything the Empire knew about physics, engineering, and the natural order of the galaxy. His tactical display showed 47 Imperial warships now surrounding the single human vessel, enough firepower to reduce a small planet to atoms. Yet something about the situation felt wrong. The human ship hadn't raised shields or powered weapons, at least not any weapons the Krathans could recognize. It simply floated there, transmitting its greeting message on repeat. Either the humans were supremely confident or supremely stupid. Given their apparent technology, Theron suspected it was the former. On the USS Defiance, Maria Rodriguez maintained her composure despite the overwhelming odds. Her crew looked to her for guidance, and she wouldn't let them see fear. She turned to her science officer, Dr. David Park, who had been analyzing the alien fleet surrounding them. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildups in the alien vessels. If I had to guess, they're charging weapons. But there's something odd about their configuration. They seem almost afraid of us. Maria found that hard to believe. One ship against nearly 50 seemed like poor odds by anyone's calculation. But then again, the aliens didn't know what the Defiance was truly capable of. Even Maria didn't fully understand all the systems her ship carried. Some of the technology they'd integrated was so advanced that humans had only managed to make it work through trial and error. She made a decision that would either save them all or doom humanity's first venture into deep space. Chief Martinez, bring the emergency defense grid online, but do not, I repeat, do not activate it unless we're fired upon. The chief engineer's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. Understood, Captain. The grid is charging. Let's hope we don't need it. The emergency defense grid was humanity's ace in the hole. Based on technology recovered from the Mars artifacts, it created a bubble of altered spacetime around the ship. Anything entering that bubble would find its atoms scattered across 12 dimensions. The human scientists who developed it called it the reality shield. They had only tested it once, and the results had vaporized a small asteroid and created a crater on the dark side of the moon, visible from Earth. Commander Vex watched from the Imperial Watchtower as the standoff continued. The human vessel remained motionless, but new energy readings suggested they were preparing something. The patterns matched nothing in the Empire's database, but they reminded him of ancient warnings in the Imperial archives. Stories of the Void Walkers, a race that had supposedly transcended physical reality before disappearing from the galaxy millions of years ago. Admiral Theron opened a communication channel to all ships in his fleet. Hold your fire, but maintain target lock. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we act. His words carried the authority of centuries of command, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his own voice. On Earth, the quantum communication array at the United Nations Space Command suddenly came alive. The message from the USS Defiance was brief but alarming. First contact achieved, surrounded by alien fleet, attempting peaceful communication. Situation tense. The world's leaders gathered in emergency session, knowing that the next few hours would determine humanity's future among the stars. Back at the standoff, Maria decided to try a different approach. She stood up from her command chair and walked to the center of the bridge. Sarah, can you identify which ship seems to be leading their fleet? Thompson studied her readings before pointing to the largest vessel on the display. That one, Captain. It's putting out command-level encryption signals to all the others. Maria nodded thoughtfully. Open a direct channel to that ship. Route it through the Universal Translator Matrix. Let's see if we can talk to whoever's in charge. The translation system was another gift from the Mars artifacts, a complex algorithm that could decode and interpret almost any form of communication. Humanity had spent 20 years perfecting it, hoping for exactly this moment. Admiral Theron was surprised when his communication officer announced an incoming message from the human vessel. The transmission came through in perfect Crathan, though with an odd accent that suggested artificial translation. This is Captain Maria Rodriguez of the United Earth ship USS Defiance. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. We mean no harm to your empire or your people. The Admiral found himself respecting the direct approach. He activated his own transmitter, speaking slowly and clearly. Captain Rodriguez, I am Admiral Theron of the Crathan Empire. Your vessel has entered our space with technology that poses a potential threat. Explain your capabilities and intentions. Maria smiled slightly. At least they were talking now. Admiral Theron, I understand your concern. Our ship uses experimental technology that we've recently developed. We're explorers, not conquerors. Our mission is to make contact with other civilizations and establish peaceful relations. Commander Vex, still monitoring from the watchtower, noticed something on his deep-range sensors. Multiple objects were approaching from the opposite direction, moving at speeds that shouldn't be possible. They would arrive in less than 10 minutes. He immediately alerted Admiral Theron, who divided his attention between the conversation with the humans and this new threat. The objects revealed themselves as ships, but not of any design the Crathans recognized. They were spherical, perfectly smooth, and gave off energy readings that made the human vessel look primitive by comparison. As they approached, every system on every ship in the area began experiencing malfunctions. Shields flickered, weapons went offline, and navigation systems spun wildly. Maria felt the USS Defiance shudder as something swept through it. The lights flickered and several consoles sparked. But then something extraordinary happened. The alien technology integrated into their systems began to respond, adapting and countering whatever was affecting them. Within seconds, the Defiance was the only ship in the area still fully operational. Admiral Theron's voice came through the communication system, no longer carrying its earlier authority. "Captain Rodriguez, we're under attack by unknown forces. Our systems are failing. Can you assist?" The irony of the situation wasn't lost on Maria. Minutes ago, they had been surrounded by a potentially hostile fleet. Now that same fleet was asking for help. She didn't hesitate. "All stations battle ready. Bring all systems online. We're going to help them." The crew of the Defiance sprang into action. Weapons they had hoped never to use powered up. Sensors that could peer into other dimensions activated. The reality shield expanded, encompassing not just their own ship, but beginning to extend toward the nearest Krathan vessels. The spherical ships opened fire with weapons that seemed to delete portions of space itself. Where their beams struck, matter simply ceased to exist. 3 Krathan vessels vanished in the first volley, leaving not even debris behind. But when they targeted the Defiance, their weapons struck the reality shield and dispersed harmlessly across multiple dimensions. Maria stood firm as her ship rocked from the impact. "Return fire all weapons. Protect the Krathan fleet." The Defiance's weapons were a mixture of human innovation and alien technology. Kinetic railguns fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Particle beams borrowed from the Mars artifacts sliced through space. But most impressive were the quantum torpedoes, weapons that existed in multiple realities simultaneously until they detonated. The first quantum torpedo struck one of the spherical ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sphere began to fracture. Not physically, but dimensionally. Parts of it existed in different realities, tearing the vessel apart from the inside. It collapsed into a point of light and vanished. Admiral Theron watched in amazement as the human vessel single-handedly held off the attacking forces. The reality shield had expanded to protect 6 of his ships now, and the human weapons were proving effective against an enemy that had rendered the Empire's greatest fleet helpless. He began to understand that humanity's appearance in space wasn't random. They were meant to be here at this moment for this battle. The remaining spherical ships regrouped, focusing all their fire on the Defiance. The reality shield held, but Maria could see the strain on their systems. Power levels dropped rapidly. In engineering, Chief Martinez and his team worked frantically to maintain the shield while keeping weapons online. Then something unexpected happened. The Krathan ships protected by the reality shield began to recover. Their systems adapted to the interference, coming back online with new configurations. Admiral Theron realized that the human shield wasn't just protecting them. It was teaching their systems how to resist the attack. He gave an order that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. "All vessels, support the human ship. Concentrate fire on the attackers. The Empire stands with Earth." The combined firepower of the recovered Krathan vessels and the Defiance proved overwhelming. The spherical ships, perhaps recognizing the shift in battle, began to retreat. They accelerated away at impossible speeds, vanishing into the void as quickly as they had appeared. As the immediate threat passed, an awkward silence fell over the assembled fleets. The Krathan ship still surrounded the Defiance, but now it felt more like a protective formation than a threatening one. Admiral Theron's voice broke the silence. "Captain Rodriguez, I believe we may have misjudged your intentions. Perhaps we should discuss an alliance rather than a conflict." Maria allowed herself a small smile of relief. "Admiral, I think that's the best idea I've heard all day. We have much to learn from each other." The USS Defiance powered down its weapons, but kept the reality shield active at a lower level. Around them, the Krathan fleet did the same, standing down from battle stations. Commander Vex transmitted from the watchtower. "Captain Admiral, I'm detecting a message from the retreating vessels. It's in an ancient language, but the computer is translating." The message was simple but chilling. "The test is complete. The humans have proven worthy. The harvest will be postponed." Maria and Admiral Theron exchanged concerned looks through their video connection. It seemed that humanity's introduction to the galactic community had prevented something terrible, but it also suggested that greater challenges lay ahead. The Empire and Earth would need to work together to face whatever the harvest meant. As the 2 fleets began coordinating for a joint return to the watchtower, Maria reflected on how the day had unfolded. Humanity had ventured into space expecting to find new worlds and new civilizations. Instead, they had found their purpose as protectors, bridges between species, and perhaps the galaxy's best hope against an ancient threat. The Empire had panicked when they detected the human warship, thinking it impossible for such a primitive species to develop such technology, but perhaps that was humanity's greatest strength. They didn't know what was impossible, so they achieved it anyway. They didn't understand that some things couldn't be done, so they found a way to do them. The alliance between Earth and the Krathan Empire would be formalized within days. Technology would be shared, knowledge exchanged, and mutual defense treaties signed. But more importantly, a friendship would be forged in the fire of battle, a bond between species that had started as enemies and become brothers in arms. As the USS Defiance docked with the Imperial Watchtower, Captain Maria Rodriguez prepared to meet Admiral Theron in person. The first handshake between human and Krathan would be remembered as the moment everything changed. The moment when humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals and protectors. The Empire had indeed panicked when they saw the human warship. They just hadn't realized they were panicking about the wrong thing. The real shock wasn't that humans had achieved the impossible. It was that they had done so while maintaining their humanity, their compassion, and their willingness to stand with others against the darkness. And in the vast expanse of space, where ancient threats lurked and old empires grew complacent, those very human qualities might be the most powerful weapons of all.